the call. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Dear members of this Chinese medicine practitioner meetup group hosted by Kamwo. And thank you for joining us. I'm Donna Ma, the co-organizer and host for tonight's event. And whether it's afternoon, morning, or evening for you, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you and anybody who's new to the meetup group. It's our hope that you enjoy this evening's event. And we are excited to host more events like this in the future, both virtually as well as in person. Our meetup group's mission is to connect members with respected authorities in our profession. We highly value your speaker suggestions, so feel free to send them to us. Today, by the way, marks our 146th event, and I'm proud to say that we are the most active Chinese medicine group on Meetup. As a special thank you for attending tonight's event, each of you will receive an email containing a $20 coupon for use at Kamwo's practitioner online store. An email coupon will be forthcoming early next week. So won't see it tomorrow, but probably by early next week. If you don't see the email, please check your spam folder because sometimes it just lands there. The talk tonight is expected to last approximately an hour and a half and will conclude by around 8 p.m. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few ground rules that just help us keep this recording something that we can share with you and others. Please mute your microphones to minimize background noise when you're not speaking, and hold off on any questions until our guest speaker prompts the Q&A session. Feel free to type them in the chat if you have a thought that we want to hold, or if there's an urgent matter or relevant comment, go ahead and type it in and I'll monitor that, or raise your hand. As your host, I will address it, ensuring that the lecture remains uninterrupted. All right, now everything that we've been waiting for. It's my pleasure and fills me with a lot of joy and pride to introduce our esteemed guest speaker, Marc Gian. Marc is not only a teacher of mine and good friend, but he's a distinguished practitioner in the healing arts and with over 20 years of experience. The backbone of Marc's practice is incorporating mind-body integration techniques from an ancient Middle Eastern lineage. Accordingly, he has spent years studying with teachers, most notably Dr. Peter Resnick, honing his skills. Marc's passion is teaching classes with patients in how to successfully utilize the tools of mental imagery and dream work. Marc is the author of 2 books, Holistic Aromatherapy, Practical Healing with Essential Oils, and The Inner World of Night Dreams. Marc is also the developer of the Meridian Biologics Essential Oils, which are carried by Kamwo. Marc has a private practice in Manhattan and Brooklyn and has worked with people via video sessions as well as in person. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Marc J. Gian, as my notes state, as he shares his profound wisdom, insights, and experiences with us today. Without further ado, I turn it over to you, Marc.
Thank you. It's funny you mentioned this is the 146th meetup. This is probably my 6th or 7th meetup. So I want to thank everybody for coming. And I just want to add a note to what you stated about my teachers. And I think it's very important that I mention Jeffrey Wen, especially when I'm teaching about essential oils and aromatherapy. Because after I studied Chinese medicine at Pacific College, I took a lot of classes with Jeffrey Wen, and he was and still is my main inspiration in the way that I often think and treat using essential oils and aromatherapy. And as much as I am a practitioner of Chinese medicine, I think we really need to take a look, or I take a look at, in a way, the broader approach using Western mind-body medicine, because I think it's actually very important that we utilize and understand the points, the herbs, the essential oils through a mind, emotional, spirit level. Because if we're only speaking about the symptom, which is what happens very often in school, like Dr. Pai says, we are chasing the dragon's tail, and we really need to look at the whole system. And it's true, you treat the symptom, eventually some things will shift, but we really need to take a look at the root of the individual, which is what me and Donna were speaking about earlier before everybody came in. And the reason why I wanted to do a class on the metal element, for first and foremost, it's we're entering the fall, so I thought it'd be a very good topic. The second is I think it is an element that many people don't really address or don't really feel very inspired to teach or speak about. But to be quite frank, I think it is the most important element when I'm teaching to healers and mind body practitioners. Why? Because the metal element is associated with boundaries. And it's very important as we are healers, as we're, going to be working with many clients, God willing, over the years, for those of you that are students or for those of you that are just starting practice, we always need to allow ourselves, excuse me, to take care of ourselves before we take care of our clients. And this is very important because I know a lot of practitioners that are burned out with the medicine, burned out with treating, burned out with doing the paperwork. So the more that we have the ability to take in what we want to take in from the world and from our patients and from the environment, and use it as a way of really balancing out and sharing with the world, and sharing with ourselves, more importantly, our own personal integrity, then our treatments are much more powerful because we are 100% there and present. And as much as we need to use the right oil, as much as we need to use the right herb, as much as we need to needle the right point, and we don't always need to needle the right point, but that's another story. Our energy needs to be aligned, right? And so we do this two ways. One, by doing proper qigong, proper breathing, also by annulling our own personal issues when we were with a client. And I know this is not necessarily the topic for this class, but it's very important to understand that whatever patient comes to you, or I'll speak from my perspective, whatever patient comes to me comes from a meeting of consciousness, meaning they're meant to be with me. So it's a blessing. I'm going to use the word God. So every patient needs to be treated with 100% of what I can give them. And it all truly starts with connecting with your metal element, connecting with your lungs, connecting with what you're taking in, connecting with the proper boundaries. And also remember, the metal element is associated with the external world. So it's how do we relay our yuan, yin, qi to the external world, right? And this is sort of another topic, but one thing that we do need to take into consideration is the relationship between the lungs and the kidneys, right? And this is actually my favorite relationship in Chinese medicine. Why is it my favorite relationship in Chinese medicine? It's because the kidneys, the deepest organ associated with our prenatal yuan source qi, take in the most external energy. And once this energy is taken in and grasped by the kidneys, it ascends upwards. And why does it ascend upwards? It ascends upwards to use and utilize our DNA, our essence, or our soul, and bring it to the external world, right? And so this is very important, which is why kidney 7 is my favorite point in the body. But let's speak a little bit about the metal elements, right? So when we think about the metal element, what do we think of? We think about the lungs and large intestine, taking in and letting go, right? What I also think about, of course, is our wei qi and our wei level. And what is the function of our wei qi, right? Is to protect us from external pathogenic influences, right? Namely wind and whatever the other pathogenic influences that are brought in with wind, right? So when our wei qi is strong, when our lung qi is strong, we are not going to get symptoms of the common cold or the flu, or if you do get them, it's not going to be as strong. And I'm going to use myself as an example. Right now, you can hear I have a little bit of a cold. Yes. And what was the cause of this, right? The cause was wind. But it's not necessarily external wind, right? We need to take a holistic approach. Yes, wind is considered the chief of 100 diseases, but what about the wind in everybody's life? What about the rapid changes in everybody's life, right? To me, this month I had a rapid change. Me and my fiance, we moved to a new apartment, a new house, actually, thank God. And there were a lot of changes, a lot of moving back and forth between apartments, checking the paint, checking the walls, checking the electricity. All of this was truly debilitating my wei qi, right? Because I was doing more than what my energy was actually calling for, right? I'm somebody that I'll work 8 hours a day, but I always spend time for myself, right? To recharge This time, there was no recharging. I was go, 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 go. My wei qi became weak, right? My pores were too open. I didn't have the proper boundaries, right? And this is what happens, right? So we need to take into consideration that. But one thing that I will always say, and this, by having this belief system, you are automatically strengthening your metal element, is that you take responsibility for your health, right? I can't blame it on the move. I can't blame it on the wind. I can't blame it on the rain. When I got COVID, it wasn't because of the pathogen. It was because my wei qi was deficient, right? And why was my wei qi deficient? My wei qi is deficient because I would be overextending myself and not creating the proper boundaries within my own being, right? And within my own life externally. So the metal element, when we think of the metal element, we want to think opening and the closing of pores. We want to believe and think of it as really boundaries, right? When we think of metal, what is it, right? We could think of a metal shield or a metal arm or something that protects us, right? So the more that you're becoming deficient, we need to take it into consideration. Why is our shield becoming deficient? Okay, and there's many different reasons, but my goal, or is that when people hear me speak, they take a look at their own lives and see, okay, where has my metal element been deficient over the last week or 2 weeks, and how can I tonify it, right? And the beauty about this class, we're going to go over essential oils that help to tonify it. But the most important thing is we need to remember is the metal element is associated with the responsibility, personal responsibility, and personal integrity, right? So many years ago, I was teaching at Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, and one of my students said, what is the best essential oil to use to say no, right? To have boundaries. I said, you don't need an essential oil. You just need to learn how to say no. And once you make that intention, then we can apply an essential oil. So the more we have the ability to say no when we truly mean it, of course, our yes is going to be stronger, but in reality, we're actually creating boundaries, right? So when we speak about the metal element, we also need to know that we're speaking about the wei level. Again, the most external level of our being. And you'll see in this class that most essential oils that are associated with our wei qi are going to be leaves, right? Some of the oils that we go in today are going to be able to release the exterior. And some of the oils like tea tree, pine, rosemary, even basil to a certain extent, helps to tonify our wei qi, right? So when we think tonification, we think boundaries, we think strengthening ourselves. When we think oils that release the exterior, we want to think releasing something that is not only to the exterior, but also something that has come from the interior to the exterior. And this is emotion, okay? So let me go over a few oils. So the first oil is an oil that is very famous and very popular. Everybody has used it, I'm sure. It's called peppermint. Donna, can you move the slides? Maybe Donna left. Okay. Anyway, so the first oil that we're going to go over is peppermint. So peppermint is what we call a top note, right? It is an oil that is extremely volatile. What else is very volatile? That's right. Wind is very volatile, right? So if you're using an oil that is very volatile, it evaporates very quickly, and it's going to stay on the wei level. And generally speaking, if you were using a top note to release the exterior, you want to use them 4 to 6 times per day. Why do we want to use essential oil blends for the exterior 4 to 6 times per day? Because they are acute. And when something is conscious, the truth is you got to use oils on a more continuous basis. If they're more subconscious, more emotional stuff, use them 1 to 2 times per day. Okay, so peppermint, it's a top note, cooling and refreshing. It's associated with the lung and the liver, right? So if you ever see an herb or an oil that is associated with the liver, you know 2 things, or 2 possibilities. 1, it either nourishes liver blood, or 2, it promotes the movement of liver qi. And what I'll say about peppermint, it does not nourish the blood at all. If anything, it does the opposite. But it certainly helps to promote the movement of liver energy when it's coming to the surface, when there are symptoms of irritability, frustration that has not been expressed. Peppermint is an exceptional oil to use on large intestine 4 and liver 3 as the 4 gates. But as you'll see here, it goes to the lungs and it helps to release the exterior. So it supports the movement of emotion upwards and outwards. And it's also one of the best essential oils to use for somebody that has symptoms of a wind heat with nasal congestion. Okay. And you can use this on points like lung 7, lung 9, lung 1, or lung 2. But I personally like to use this with a couple of drops of peppermint in about a nickel-sized massage oil and actually massage the neck, right? Massage some of the taiyang areas, massage the head, and also use it gently around the eyes. You always want to use caution with essential oils around the eyes because it can cause quite a bit of irritation. So don't get oils in the eyes. And I have a story about peppermint and releasing the exterior in regards to emotion. I was in Guatemala many years ago on I forget what it was called. I forget what it's called, but and there was about 10 or 15 different practitioners that worked with acupuncture. Some did Reiki, some did other things, but I primarily used acupuncture and essential oils. In another room, somebody called to me and said, Mark, is there any essential oil that you can help somebody to release, to begin to cry? I said, okay, sure. But before I use any oil or any herb or any needle, I need to speak with them. I need to feel them. I need to know like what is going on with them. Like, because the beauty about using essential oils is that essential oils are spirit. So they have consciousness. So you want to use an oil that can help to bring to consciousness or bring this being into a state of consciousness for their healing, right? I got a little information and I gently rubbed peppermint on lung 7, right? Lung 7 releases the exterior, peppermint releases the exterior. I'm telling you, within 5 seconds, this woman was crying and in tears. She was emoting. She was releasing the emotion to the exterior. Turned out she saw one of her family members get shot, right? So these are all these things that we are holding in, and peppermint truly helps this as well. Also, not so much for the metal elements, but for plum pitchy, peppermint and Roman chamomile and lavender all work very well together to release something that needs to be expressed. Okay, so peppermint, we want to know that it's cooling, refreshing, extremely aromatic, one of the best oils to use for wind heat when there is sinus congestion. Also, one of the best oils to use when there is migraines, but not migraines due to blood deficiency. If there's a migraine due to blood deficiency, you want to use Roman chamomile. If it's due to stagnation, peppermint is the #1 essential oil to use. Okay, so here are some functions of peppermint. It releases the exterior, opens up the orifices, also helps concentration, promotes the movement of qi, promotes the movement of lung qi, promotes the movement of liver qi. And for promoting the movement of lung qi and liver qi, you can use peppermint with lavender. Lavender is one of the most special oils. It helps to promote the movement of liver qi and promotes the movement of lung qi, right? And this is one of the reasons why peppermint and lavender work so well on liver 14. It can help to transform phlegm in the upper orifices. So one thing about aromatherapy is that it works very well on the orifices. And when I'm saying orifices, the eyes, the nose, the ears, right? So if any herb or oil is very beneficial to transform phlegm in the orifices, the upper orifices, we know that it's transforming consciousness, right? When the phlegm is muddled, when the phlegm is blocking the orifices, we need to work on aromatically opening up the orifices and transforming phlegm. So peppermint helps to awaken the consciousness of the individual, okay? Additionally, as it helps to release the exterior, it's also going to help to promote self-expression on a superficial level. This is one of the best oils to use when somebody is a little bit lethargic and they're quote unquote depressed or looking back into the past, brings them into the present moment. Analgesic, decongestant, astringent, emmenagogue, yes, it promotes menstruation. Here, you see here, a little bit below, a cool passage and warm passage. These are two blends by Meridian Biologics that are very beneficial for a wind heat or a wind cold. So cool passage contains Eucalyptus radiata, peppermint, bergamot, and Eucalyptus globulus. So what you see here are 3 cooling herbs: Eucalyptus radiata, peppermint, and bergamot, and one warming herb, eucalyptus globulus, to balance this out, to balance the cooling oils out. So cool passage will be for symptoms of a wind heat. Warm passage, peppermint is also in, but it's not used as a primary oil. It's used to balance out the warmth of rosemary, eucalyptus globulus, and basil. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Okay, so the next oil is eucalyptus radiata. This would be considered more of a top note. Like all the other oils in the class, they're all going to be associated with the lungs. And this is an oil like peppermint, released to the exterior. But one thing that's very special about eucalyptus radiata, well, two things really. But the first thing is that it's one of the best oils to use for an earache. So what I would do when somebody has an earache, I would take 1 drop of eucalyptus radiata in about a nickel size of massage oil and massage along the back side of the ears all the way down, right? And I'll go all the way down to large intestine 16. Another very important thing about eucalyptus radiata, eucalyptus globulus, and rosemary, which we'll get to in a little bit, it has a very high amount of 1,8 cineol, the chemical constituent, also known as eucalyptol. And yes, this is antibacterial, it's antiviral, but you'll see in much research that this chemical constituent is known to be very beneficial for memory and focus. So for those of you that may be students or practitioners that need a little bit of help in the area of focus and inspiration, eucalyptus radiata, rosemary, eucalyptus globulus are all very beneficial for this, and you can diffuse this in a room. I personally use rosemary, but eucalyptus radiata is one of the best oils for earaches. It's also very beneficial to transform phlegm. So if somebody has a cough with the wind heat, this is the essential oil that you would want to use. And you want to use essential oils on the chest, lung 1, lung 2, the intercostal muscles, make a compress, also on the upper areas of the back. And the massage technique that you want to use would be tapotement, right? It's a little hard to do on me, but, or, right? Those of you that like cupping, you can do cupping as well. As I'm getting older, I'm doing more cupping and a little bit less massage. Okay. You see here it's antibacterial, antiviral, as I mentioned, expels phlegm. Great for children. This is one of the safest essential oils for children. Eucalyptus globulus, not very safe. It's actually quite warm, and you need to use caution. Ear infections, ear pain, like peppermint, you could use it as for inhalation for rhinitis. Again, as you see here, cool passage. It's also in cool passage. Eucalyptus radiata would be the king oil in this blend. Then you have peppermint, bergamot, and again, eucalyptus globulus to balance it out. So eucalyptus globulus we use because it's a bit stronger than peppermint and goes a little bit deeper into the body. Okay, does it tonify? It does not tonify yet. We will get into a couple of oils that tonify that shape. Okay, so the next oil, and this is a warming oil, and this is eucalyptus globulus. So if anybody's ever smelled the difference between eucalyptus globulus and eucalyptus radiata, you'll know that eucalyptus radiata has much more of like an uplifting quality, while eucalyptus globulus still does, but it doesn't have the same kind of scent that is inviting, right? So you see here, it's warming, goes to the lungs and stomach. Again, caution, because children and babies, it could be a little bit too strong, can inhibit respiration. Okay, but this is one of the primary oils, I was about to say herbs, to expel phlegm in the lungs, and you would use it the same way as I mentioned eucalyptus radiata. It's a very strong decongestant. Another way to use this as a decongestant is not only to use it in a diffuser, but you can place a couple of drops on a cotton ball and place it a few inches from your nose. Make sure not to touch your nose because it can burn a little bit. And just inhale. And when you exhale, take the cotton ball away. You can do this 3 to 5 times, a few times an hour, actually, if you are so congested. Okay, very high antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal. This is a very important oil for pain in the deltoids, forearms, posterior aspect of the arm. Okay, and this is because it's very much associated with the yang channels of the arm. And this is the most important oil for somebody that has B syndrome, that is considered to be of a wind, damp, cold nature. And what is B syndrome, right? B syndrome only can happen when our Wei Qi is deficient and the wind brings in cold with it and disrupts not only the muscles, the tendons, but also the joints as well. And usually, not always, usually when people get wind, damp, cold, or arthritis, they generally will have a longer history of a Wei Qi deficiency. And what's interesting, if you take a look back in their chart or in their notes, in their intake, you'll notice they may have a history of frequency of common colds. Okay. Also, there could also be history of long-standing grief, if your patients will disclose that to you. Okay. You could also use this for sciatica. Lemongrass is a much better essential oil, but here you see again, it's in warm passage. Rosemary, eucalyptus, both very important in this because they both help to release the exterior and prevent further symptoms of the common cold. You also have basil, eucalyptus, radiata, and peppermint, and you'll see when we get to rosemary why rosemary is the most important oil in this blend. I'll give you a little hint because it's a middle note and it tonifies. Also, as I mentioned before, cool passage because it balances out the blend. But if you want to compare eucalyptus radiata to eucalyptus globulus, eucalyptus radiata is the much more inviting scent. Okay. So here we have tea tree. This is one of the most famous essential oils. This is one that we use all the time. It's a middle note, so awesome. So when we see middle note, we know that it's a little bit thicker, a little bit more viscous than those that are top notes, meaning it takes longer to evaporate, meaning it goes a little bit deeper into the body, deeper into the consciousness. Also means that it does what? It means that it helps to tonify. It's cooling. You see it goes to the lungs and to the kidneys. Mwah, I love it. So if it goes to the lungs and the kidneys, if you see an oil that goes to the lungs and the kidneys, you know that it's going to have the ability to work with the relationship between the lungs and the kidneys. So what does this do? It works between the relationship between our Wei Qi and our Yuan source Qi, right? Our Wei Qi, the most external, how we express ourselves in the external world. But how does that come from? It comes from the deepest level of our being, from our Yuan source Qi. Okay, so tea tree. This is interesting. I didn't really give a whole preface about essential oils and holistic medicine and the doctrine of signatures, which I usually do. But what's interesting about tea tree, it grows in the warm, wet, and swampy areas in Australia. So what is this showing us? It's showing us that it has the ability to balance out the terrain. So it helps to drain and dry dampness. And this is one of the main functions that it is so famous for in the West, is that it helps to alleviate fungal infections on the skin. But we all know that if you're using tea tree, if you're using essential oil, if you're only using external applications, the fungal infection is always going to come back. Okay. And that's okay too, you know. And for those of you that have used herbs with fungal infections, you know that sometimes when you use herbs, it gets worse, right? I've had this many times with clients, but eventually I speak to them saying, yes, one of the reasons why it's getting worse is because we need to vent it. We need to express it. And then eventually it'll cool down. But we should understand that this person has a tendency for fungal infections. This is associated with what? This would be associated with their constitution, associated with their kidneys. Okay. So tonifies lung qi, helps kidneys to grasp lung qi. So there's 2 points that I love to use tea tree on. It's lung 9 to tonify the lungs, and kidney 7, the metal element on the kidney point, on the Yuan source channel, but on the channel that is associated with our constitution, right? So kidney 7 helps to grasp our lung qi. It helps the kidney yang to grasp the lung qi. Strong antifungal, antibacterial. As we should know, it stimulates the immune system and emotionally helps you if you want to build boundaries. So, you know, I've worked with many patients over the years, and many patients have been getting out of relationships, and they feel it's hard to disconnect. So before I prescribe any herbs or give them any oils, it's very important to help to inspire them to make a break or to continue along the path that they have chosen to start a new life. But what does this take? This takes the ability to create boundaries, at least for a little bit, and shift your consciousness, shift your mind to a different radio station, meaning not the person that you were been dating for many years or just a short time. So tea tree helps to build boundaries, and you would couple this with an oil like pine or cypress, which is astringent. Whenever you see an herb, and this includes baijiu, any herb that has any kind of astringent quality is going to help to build boundaries, okay? Because you're bringing your energy in, you're doing what is the best for yourself. And many times this is what people need for healing. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I know there's many healers that want to help. But like at the end of the day, you're with yourself, right? Your energy should be as strong as possible. So you see here, tea tree. It's in the formula, essential oil formula, support the spirit of the lungs. You have tea tree, pine, rosemary, frankincense, and lemon. So tea tree helps to tonify the lungs, goes to the lungs into the kidneys. Pine, which we'll see next, I believe, also tonifies the lungs, go to the kidneys. It's also astringent. Rosemary is an oil that is probably the most, I would say it's the most tonifying essential oil for the lungs and the spleen, to help to tonify and bring our energy upwards, right? And really, for those of you that are working with more like energetics, like our solar plexus, the rosemary is one of the best essential oils for our solar plexus chakra, right? Very much associated with a healthy ego. And the truth is, what holds up our heart when we're speaking about energetic medicine? It's our solar plexus. The truth is, it is our sense of self. And it's very important as we move through this world that we do know who we are in this world, right? And solar plexus is very much associated with taking in and letting go. And the solar plexus are the bridge between your lower energy centers and your upper energy centers. So I'm having like flashbacks from when I used to teach a lot at Pacific and things that I would say. This is the first time I'm teaching this class in a while. And if we are only focusing on love and kindness and like only focusing on our upper energy and want to be in this vibration of bliss and all this stuff, then we need to really to take into consideration what happens when we hear something in the outside world that is not of that vibration, right? Our hearts may become a wet noodle. So this is where the solar plexus come in, and this is very much associated with your sense of self. Many years ago, somebody told me that I was the most selfish healer. And I said, and I didn't really know what she meant, but we spoke about it, and it really comes from the fact that, like, in order for any of us to do the best that we can, we have to take care of ourselves. And sometimes we do need to say no, and sometimes we do need to say no to patients, as far as when they want a treatment and how much they want to take of our time, right? For many years, I was doing coaching with new practitioners, and some new practitioners would spend an hour and a half with their clients. And we need to understand that you can do quite well for a client in an hour or 45 minutes and really be there for them, and then learn to detach, right? Because in truth, we can only do the best that we can for our clients, but at the end of the day, they go back to their own environment, right? And what we do with acupuncture, what we do with herbs, what we do with essential oils, we try to change their inner environment, including their mind, their consciousness, so they take it out into the external world, so that external world that they're living in no longer suits them, and they begin to make changes, okay? And that's actually the crux of all my teaching. So tea tree, pine, rosemary, and frankincense. We're not really going to get into frankincense this evening, but frankincense is an oil that's very beneficial for wounds that won't heal, very beneficial for tonifying our lungs and our kidneys, and all. It's a base note, so it's very beneficial for chronic conditions. And as you can imagine, it also will go to the lungs and the kidneys. Lemon is there to open up the blend and invite people to take in this blend. It's a very potent top note and really helps with focus and astringent, okay? Coming back to ourselves. So when we think support Po, when we think tonify our lungs, what's the best for our individuality? What's the best for your soul's purpose? And this is why I have tea tree and pine and frankincense in this blend, because they're all associated with the lungs and the kidneys, okay? Okay, so Scots pine. So it's a middle note, warming. It goes to the lungs and to the kidneys. So if you see an oil that's warming and goes to the kidneys, you know it's going to have the ability to not only tonify the kidneys, but it's also going to be quite beneficial for lower back pain. So tea tree and pine I use quite a bit for lower back pain. It's a needle. Needles act very similar to leaves, except for needles tend to be a little bit more astringent, a little bit more drying. You do want to use caution with those that have blood or yin deficiency because it is warm and drying. So pine, like tea tree, helps to strengthen the lung chi, like eucalyptus radiata, like eucalyptus globulus, it helps to transform phlegm. However, I would use eucalyptus radiata, eucalyptus globulus as the primary source for transforming phlegm. But remember, when we transform phlegm, what happens? It's not like, okay, we're just going to transform phlegm, like give an herb, give an oil, and the body transforms phlegm. No. Very often, transforming phlegm is coughing up phlegm. And what does this take? This takes chi. So we want to couple the eucalyptus radiata or the eucalyptus globulus with an oil that tonifies our chi. So pine and tea tree, along with eucalyptus globulus or radiata, are very important. Is a very important combination to support somebody when they are transforming phlegm. And one thing that I want to say about phlegm, what is phlegm? Phlegm is dampness, right? That is often stored in the lungs. And remember, phlegm is just not, it's not just like there's phlegm in the lungs. There's a spleen chi vacuity that happens first before the lungs can store this phlegm. And where does the spleen chi deficiency come from? Yes, we can say food. Yes, we can say diet. Yes, we certainly can say post-synal chi in terms of relationships. But where does the spleen chi get its energy from? It gets much of its energy from our kidney chi, our kidney fire, to support this. Okay, so here we use an oil or oils like pine and tea tree to help to tonify the lungs and the kidneys. And pine is warming, so it's going to have a little bit of an extra push for that kidney fire. Antifungal, anti-infection, again, it's an expectorant, supports the adrenals, strengthens our kidney chi for dull, low back pain, but also increases the libido for men, works well with frankincense to increase the depth of respiration. Okay, again, support Po. I don't need to go into that again. So, rosemary officinalis, and this is probably my favorite essential oil. And why is it my favorite essential oil? Because it's one of the most important oils to help to tonify our lungs and spleen and bring energy outwards and strongly promote the movement of chi stagnation. And unfortunately, what happens is when people have long-standing chi stagnation, what happens? It can turn into what? Phlegm, right? What is dampness? Dampness is a yin pathogen, but dampness is associated with being stuck. Dampness is a chi stagnation. So rosemary brings this energy upwards and outwards to be expressed. This is a very important oil, like some of the other oils that we have been going over, that is very beneficial for people that want change in their life. I tell this story all the time. Daniel, you probably heard this in the essential oil class many years ago. So many years ago, I was treating somebody that kept on sharing with me 5, 6, 7 treatments that she wants to break up with her boyfriend. It's not working, but you just can't do it, for a variety of reasons, right? Too attached, doesn't want to hurt the individual, but her chi was becoming very stuck. I said to this individual, I said, the truth is you're telling the wrong guy here, right? It's really important. I think it's time that you speak to your boyfriend and break up with him. So we go into the room, we do a back treatment, and I'm using rosemary on her back. She's like, "Ugh, I don't like that smell." Very often, not all the time, when somebody has a very strong reaction to a scent, it's actually what they need. And that disgust of the scent is actually bringing energy upwards and outwards, right? And she became angry with me after the session. 99.99999% of the time, when anybody becomes angry with me after a session, I know, aha, this is going to be an amazing week for this individual. Okay. And what did she do that week? She broke up with her boyfriend, and she's, she thanked me very much. And 15 years later, she's still sending me clients. And that's the power of essential oils and the power of aromatherapy, because it shifts the mind, it shifts the vibration that somebody is on. And, unfortunately, people tend to go over things in their head again and again and again and again, and they ruminate on it. And what happens is, because the mind is associated with the Shen is associated with the heart, this is circulating throughout our body as the heart pumps our emotions and our thoughts as well throughout our body. So it needs a shift, right? And rosemary is one of the most powerful essential oils to create the shift very quickly. So what happened in that case was that rosemary was used to promote the movement of liver chi, right? To promote upwards and outwards, to be expressed in the way level via the lungs, right? And the heart, right? The speech, to speak to this individual and really claim her space again, claim who she wants to be and move in a different direction. Okay. Last I've seen her on Facebook, she's happily married. So anyway, rosemary, you want to think of this as a middle note, not so much a top note. It's warming. You see all the channels it goes through: the lung, liver, gallbladder, kidney, spleen. I would also say the heart as well. So for the lungs, promotes the movement of lung qi, strongly releases the exterior, but most importantly, strengthens our OH. If you want a number one oil for boundaries and, and saying no, this is it. Okay. This is the king essential oil for that. And, for those of us that do yoga, this is like warrior pose, right? This is, when we're doing warrior pose and we're really feeling it in our solar plexus, right? Feeling it in our legs. That is the grounding nature of taking in your own, the word power is so overused, but claiming your own integrity and who you are in this world. And that is what rosemary does. Okay. Strengthens the spleen, helps to transform damp. Very important to know that this is one oil that we're learning this tonight, that strengthens our sympathetic activity and nerves, right? It strengthens ourselves, right? Very often we're always speaking about healing as being relaxed and calm. No. Sometimes you need to go out into the world and conquer, right? You have to conquer, you have to accomplish, you have to build your own kingdom, right? This is what the importance of rosemary. So as you can imagine, rosemary is one of the most yang essential oils that we can use. So rosemary would be one of the most important oils for people that have a lot of goals and ambition, but never can seem to, begin to make the steps, right? Or see the course through. So rosemary is very exceptional in terms of determination, and you want to couple this with ginger essential oil. Okay. Rosemary is also a very important oil to use when you are working out. If you want to go a little bit more, if you want to go the extra mile. Many years ago, I was teaching someone that would run marathons. Excuse me. And she used the rosemary on run 17, and she noticed that she could run faster and longer. So again, what is that associated with? That's associated with willpower and determination. Okay. Strongly promotes the movement of liver chi, right? You can use this with lavender, Roman chamomile, and bergamot on the 4 gates to promote the movement of liver chi. Also, rosemary is one of the best oils to use when there is wood overacting on earth, when there's anger, irritability, frustration that is causing a deficiency in the spleen. This is the perfect oil for it because it brings energy upwards and outwards to be expressed, raises the liver energy, right? And takes it away from moving into the spleen. And in addition to this, it also helps to tonify the spleen. Okay, so rosemary, when liver is overacting on the spleen. Okay, and how does this relate to the metal element? Because if the liver keeps on overacting on the spleen is going to become very deficient. Then the postnatal energy that the spleen wants to give to the lungs is going to be somewhat toxic, and this is how phlegm it becomes stored in the lungs. And we know after the postnatal energy is brought up to the lungs, we move it to the heart to produce blood. Okay, so we want our spleen to be quite strong. Okay, so I mentioned this earlier with Eucalyptus globulus and Eucalyptus rosemary, Eucalyptus radiata. One of the best oils to use for memory, for reasoning, and for mental functions. But what I really want you to remember about rosemary, it helps to bring assertiveness into somebody's life. Okay, for those that may feel a little bit self-conscious or lack a little bit of confidence, rosemary is your oil. Okay, so warm passage again: rosemary, Eucalyptus globulus, basil, Eucalyptus radiata, peppermint. Don't feel the need to go over that now. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them. Again, support po, tea tree pine, rosemary, frankincense, and lemon. Okay, so as you see here with the tea tree pine and rosemary, from what we learned already, you can imagine that it's a very strong formula to help to tonify the lungs and strengthen the individual. Okay, what is the best for me? Okay, feels good to do what's the best for you, because when you do what's the best for you, you're going to be able to, you're doing the best for everybody else. Okay. Okay. Okay, so basil. So basil is a top note. It's warming. You see here, it goes to the lungs, the liver, the stomach, and the kidneys. I primarily think of this as the lungs and the kidneys, the liver to a certain extent, and yes, the stomach, especially if there is, say stomach and spleen, especially if there is spleen and kidney yang deficiency. Basil you would want to use with an oil like cinnamon or ginger. You do want to use caution, same with rosemary, for high blood pressure, yin vacuity, young rising, pregnancy, and in children. Some functions of basil: releases the exterior for when cold, similar to rosemary, but not as strong. Raises the chi and stimulates the mind. A point prescription for this would be to use it on DO20 and kidney 3, as it raises the energy upwards. It stimulates the mind, and also very good for confidence. Improves studying, improves focus, great for studying. Very important to know that, like peppermint, it's beneficial for pain in the neck or the upper body. Now, basil will be more beneficial when it's due to cold, peppermint when it's more due to heat and inflammation. Basil, going back to the spleen-stomach connection, constipation due to cold. You could also use this essential oil when there is loose stools with a spleen and kidney yang deficiency, right? Like most often people think, okay, spleen and kidney yang deficiency, you're going to have loose stools because there's no kidney fire and the spleen isn't holding. But remember, when there's a yang deficiency, right, another part can be that there's constipation because there's no energy to move. Okay. Certainly you can use this with delayed menses, scanty periods due to cold, for chi and blood stagnation. If we're speaking about the delayed menses, scanty periods due to cold, we also want to use a very special essential oil called Melissa, which is one of the most expensive of the essential oils. You do want to use quite a bit of caution for menstrual irregularities that are due to blood vacuity, because basil is warming. So this is Chinese medicine, so we understand that there are probably essential oils for blood vacuity, and yes, there are. Roman chamomile is one of the most important oils for blood deficiency related to menstrual irregularities. Another very common one would be carrot seed, and another one that I would use quite often would be palmarosa. And when we're speaking about a blood deficiency, when we're speaking about a yin deficiency, we cannot just think of nourishing the blood, nourishing the yin. The first thing we need to think of is calming our mind. The first thing we need to think about is yin tang, nourishing the heart blood, right? Because we can give all of these essential oils, all these herbs, but when we calm the mind, we are already nourishing our blood. We're already nourishing our yin. The yin and the blood cannot be nourished unless the body is relaxed. So many people say acupuncture cannot nourish the yin, cannot nourish the blood because you're not putting a substance in the body. Okay, fine. But when we're using points like yin tang, liver 2, liver 3, the heart pericardium points, you're naturally nourishing the yin. So again, think in broader terms than what you're learning in school. Okay? Yin is nourishment. Blood is nourishment. So this is very important to realize that whatever experience that you're having in the external world, in the way level, we're taking it in from our portals, our eyes, our nose, our ears, right? Our eyes, how do we see the world? Our ears, how do we hear the world? Our nose, how do we smell the world, right? How do we breathe into the world? And all of this from our way level is going into our spleen to be transformed and transported, right? So it's very important to realize that our experiences begin to turn into blood. May not be what we would consider physical blood, but I certainly believe when we take a wider view that our experiences are also circulating in our blood. And this has been, found out now, right? When people are doing DNA, I forget what it's called, but the memories of many generations are being passed down through the DNA. And what is DNA? DNA is our essence. What is essence? Essence is, our constitution, our curriculum in life, right? Very much associated with how we nourish ourselves and how we go through life. So, wow, that's all the slides. I didn't realize I would get to that so quickly. So, I could go on about aromatherapy and holistic medicine, and Daniel knows me, so he knows that I don't always stay on topic, but I give you guys at least help you guys learn quite a bit, I hope.